About the Haggadah, so we said we start with halachma anya diachalu avatana. I explained yesterday that it was a combination of three phrases that people used to say. First, they said this is the bread of poverty. Then, in the middle of the meal, they would say everyone is welcome to join the meal. And then at the end of the meal, they would say L'shana haba b'Yerushalayim. But because they were all in Aramaic, they were put together and they were placed in the beginning of the Haggadah. And then they would bring the parperaot, the appetizers, which today is the celery. Most people eat celery, some eat other vegetables. And then we follow with the Nishtana alayla hazeh. In some customs, you remove the tray. In other places, in the time of the Mishnah, it says Mesalkina Shulchan. They would remove the whole table, but back then the table was like standing on two stands, so you could lift the table like a board and remove it and then bring it back. So all that was meant to create some kind of change that the kids will ask, which we know today that creating change is very good in terms of not just education, also to reinvigorate the brain. The Lumosity, there are other apps that are meant to help people who have dementia or Alzheimer, to help them exercise their brain. And one of the things that could really help is introduce change in your life. Even on a regular basis, you drive to work one way, try to take a different way when you go back. If you work with a computer, try to once in a while use the mouse with the left hand. It's extremely difficult, but or even moving, again in an office setting, you move the wastebasket from the right to the left. So what happens every time you move to the right? Oh no, I have to do it here, and then the brain is kicking into action. So Pesach is supposed to be all about that, about change, and today everybody already knows the whole schedule. So if you have the seder at home and you can think of something that will surprise people, that will make them take a different direction, it's okay to do that, of course, except for bringing hametz. Don't do that. Okay, let me surprise you. Which I had once. I had a guest come in with a cake on Pesach. I told you that, right? Yes, it was crazy.
Regular cake.
She brought a cake. She was a Russian Jew. She didn't know. She knew. She told us later on. She says, I know you don't eat that on Pesach, but I said only once. What's going to happen? Anyway, so then we read Nishtana. So Nishtana, which means why is that night different? That's the question. All the statements shebechol halelot, we do this and that, is not the answer. This is the question. Why is that night different that we do A, B, C? So originally there were three questions only in the Nishtana. There were three questions, and there were all other nights we dip once, and tonight we dip twice. One with the celery, and later on with the haroset when we eating the matzah. Right, all other nights we eat either bread or matzah, and tonight we eat only matzah. We don't say this anymore, right? That all other nights we cook the meat any way we want. We could roast it, cook it, fry it, but tonight we only eat roast. So, and all these questions have changed throughout generations, except for hametz or matzah. But even that, when you think practically, doesn't really apply. I'll explain. So regarding the tibul, I explained yesterday that people used to do it on a regular basis before every meal, every fancy meal. You start with appetizers and you dip. In the time of the Talmud in Bavel, people didn't do it anymore, so they changed the question. Instead of saying every night we dip once, they said every night, all other nights we don't dip even once, and tonight twice. Today, maybe you have to go back to the original question. All nights we dip once, because there is, you bring the first course is like appetizers, salad dips and vegetables, etc. when we say Shebechol anu ochlim hametz u'matzah, most people don't eat matzah the rest of the year. Some people do, I know. But most people don't eat matzah all other nights. So this question is, we should have said, Shebechol anu ochlim hametz, alayla hazeh matzah. Right? But, okay, we keep that question. Why did they ask this question in that manner at that time? Because hametz, it's harder to make hametz bread than you think. Today, you ask someone, how does the dough become hametz? It says you leave it 20 minutes without touching it, it will become hametz. Not true. If you take water and flour only, I told last year.
26 hours.
26 hours. It takes the dough to rise. So if you didn't have, and people didn't have yeast at the time, what they used was starter dough. Sourdough, starter dough. They call it either that, it's se'o. So what you let one dough rise, and then you take a piece of it and you keep it for the next one. This could go on for years. It's very popular now in America. There are bakeries that do all sourdough from the original dough started 30 years ago. So it has more, healthy bacteria and all that. So what happened if you had guests coming over, or you have a meal or a big meal, and you didn't have enough starter dough? You do flatbread, and that means mixing water and flour and baking it right away, lafa on the taboon, like what do you call it? Foran, right? So you bake it there. It's really matzah. That's the soft matzah. Technically, if you want to bake matzah at home, right? The kashrut organization not happy with that, but it's true. If you want to bake matzah at home, you can buy flour. Any flour is kosher for Pesach. It doesn't have to be kosher for Pesach flour, because even if it's processed with water, it's not hametz. You see, it's powder. And the halacha Shulchan Aruch says clearly, if you can't find the special flour for Pesach, lokach kemach min hashuk. So technically, you could buy flour, mix it with water, put it in the pan, and if you didn't wait for 2-3 hours, let's say, give you security, safety range, you could eat it. So all other nights people would eat hametz u'matzah, and that night only matzah. Now the last one, the original question was shebechol elot anu ochlim basar tzali shaluk u'mevushal halayla hazeh kulo tzali. For the first 100 to 200 years after the destruction, people would eat on Pesach night only roast meat. Now, why is that? Because the Pesach, the Torah says that Korban Pesach, לא תאכלו ממנו נע ובשל מבושל במים, כי אם צלי אש ראשו על קרעה ועל קרבו. Torah says to Bnei Israel in Mitzrayim, you have to roast the lamb. You cannot eat it cooked or raw. Now, why would Bnei Israel, why would anyone want to eat raw meat?
Ethiopia.
Okay, some people do, but the Torah had to tell them, like very strictly, do not eat it raw. You have to eat it roast, because the original Pesach, the first one in Mitzrayim, the Jews were scared. The Israelites were very scared of the Egyptians, because it's called To'avat Mitzrayim. Nizbah To'avat Mitzrayim le'aynehem velo iskelunu. The Egyptians worshipped the cattle and sheep. So for Bnei Israel to come in, the Egyptians would eat from it, but the Israelites were not allowed to eat from it. So for them now to come and slaughter it and eat it is an act of defiance. They're provoking the Egyptians. So when Moshe tells them,
they're God.
Nachon, it's true that God tells them, but they still with this.
They're God.
Oh, they're gods, yes. But so they still have the slave mentality. So Moshe comes and tells Bnei Israel, you know what? On the 14th of Nisan, you're going to eat lamb. They say, what? The Egyptians are going to kill us. He says, God said, you have to do it. Don't worry, God will protect you. They say, okay, you know what? We'll eat it, but we'll cook it in water, so it doesn't, the smell doesn't waft around the neighborhood. He says, no, you can't do that. They say, we'll eat it raw, right? This way nobody will know. He says, no, roast it. This way everybody knows, that to show that you're not afraid of the Egyptians. And because of that, on Pesach night you only eat roast. So after the Churban, after the destruction, for several hundred years, people ate roast. But then there was a problem, because in some places, people not only ate roast, they made the whole lamb or the whole goat roasted, and the rabbi said, this you cannot do. You can't do the whole animal, you have to eat only pieces. Why? Because it seems the way to do the whole animal was done only at the temple. So if you do it and the temple is destroyed, it's as if you're bringing a sacrifice outside the temple. That's a Mishnah in Pesachim. The Mishnah says about a man who was the leader of the community in Rome in the 2nd century. His name was Todos or Theodos. It's a Latin name, and hinhig leechol gedaim mekulasin be'arev Pesach. Everybody would eat a whole, every family, a whole roast lamb. So the rabbi, Rabban Gamliel, sent him a letter. He says, "Ilmale todos ata gozrani alecha nidui." I mean, if not for your position, you're an important man, I would put you in harem, excommunicate you, because what you're doing, it like you're bringing sacrifices in Rome, it's not permitted. As a result, because of that statement, people started being more cautious about eating roast on Pesach. So today, there are different minhagim, different customs. Some people would eat roast. Some people wouldn't eat any roast meat or chicken on Pesach, on the first night. Some people eat different types, but not lamb or goat meat. Anyway, goat meat is not available today, but not lamb on Erev Pesach. But technically, there's no prohibition there. Anyway, there are more changes in Nishtana, but we'll continue B'ezrat Hashem on Monday. Baruch Adonai.
The matzah is not associated only with Pesach.
Right.
Because it's like in Parashat Tzad,
Nachon.
matzot te'afef b'makom kadosh.
Right.
Described in Mincha.
Right. So that's another issue. Right. In ancient, we'll talk about it more, but just briefly, in ancient times, like I said, it was very difficult to make bread. It's not as easy as we think. So, and the bread. No, just because you had to wait. Not easy because you had to wait for the dough to rise. And if you didn't have starter dough, you didn't have yeast like you have today. You throw it in and it's leavening agent. So people used to eat matzah most of the time, and that's why Avraham serves.
Even in the Korban, when you describe the Mincha.
No, so I'll tell you why the Kohanim bring in the temple is always matzah, right, except for Shavuot. So, but there's a reason, because in the temple you could have prepared it. So what happens is this: everybody ate matzah. Most people ate matzah. Avraham, when it says Nushi v'asi ugot, but it was matzah. Lot, it says umatzot afav vayuchelu. Why did he give him matzah?
It's Pesach.
He didn't write. Rashi says it's Pesach. No, but he didn't have time to make matzah. Now, when Bnei Israel came to Egypt, they discovered bread, because that was the specialty of the priests.
Yeast.
I don't know if yeast or starter dough, but they knew how to make. And in all the figurines that you find in Egyptian tombs, you see, they used to put little clay figurines describing the people at life. They pride themselves for making beer and bread, two like hametz staples. So in Egypt, the Israelites will get bread only if the priests would give it to them. So they associated bread, leavened bread, with avodah zarah, with idolatry. So that's why we don't eat on Pesach. In the temple, that has to be completely removed from idolatry. There's no hametz at all, only matzah, except for Shavuot, because on Shavuot, God, as if it were, comes down to earth, right? Vayered Hashem ala Sinai. So God says, I will share with your bread, the regular bread. So that's my theory. But anyway, we'll talk about it more when we go into the statement that Rabban Gamliel Omer, right, that you have to say Pesach, Matzah, Umaror. What is the symbol of Matzah? So we'll start. Baruch Adonai.